In our coronavirus coverage, a Utah woman and Utah senator are teaming up to get some answers. This comes after a group claims they've experienced life-altering injuries that they believe are from the vaccine. While the symptoms haven't been officially linked to the vaccine by the CDC, some are convinced that they're related. Now, I spoke with that woman to find out what she's been experiencing and why she's now asking the public for help.
There's no question that the vaccines do save lives.
Brianne Dressen is a preschool teacher in Saratoga Springs who participated in the AstraZeneca clinical trial back in November.
We all knew that some people were going to draw the short straw.
And that includes her. She got her shot on November 4th, and she says she hasn't been the same since.
Immediately, within an hour, I had tubing down my arm, and by the time I got home, my vision was blurry and double.
But that wasn't all.
My sensitivity to sound in my head became so severe that I had to have earmuffs on all the time, and sunglasses.
She says that's when things took a turn for the worse.
So I had this weeks-long neurological decline, and nobody knew what was going on. I called the test clinic several times. Finally, 2 days later, they had me come in, and they did a neurological exam, and they said, "Oh, it looks like you have MS."
Her symptoms continued to worsen, and just before Thanksgiving, she says her legs stopped working, sending her to the ER. But after running several MRIs, CAT scans, and lumbar punctures, nothing.
I spent the next several months of my life trapped in my room by myself, completely alone and in silence. Even the sound of my husband's pants swishing was too much for my ears. We put towels on the windows, trying to make it darker. And it was a nightmare.
No answers, no relief, no hope.
I missed out on Christmas.
All right. I'm going to stop that right there. Peace, love, and positive energy. Peace, love, and positive energy. Peace, love, and positive energy. What's up, y'all? What's up, good people, man? Listen, I have been talking about this because I went through it. There's a lot of scientists and people that have been talking about this for at least 40 some years. For a while. That the vaccines is causing a problem. That is a heavy metal issue that she's dealing with, and all heavy metals cause neurological problems. No, I'm not like a Dane Calloway. He got the music and everything together. I'm not there yet. Maybe I might not even get there, because I like to get to the point, which I love how he puts it, because, man, when I tell you Dane Calloway really put it down, I love it. I'm glad that brother was able to put it down. But let's just kind of take a look here, and let's see what we got. I'm not for sure if this is the right one. Got aluminum, calcium, tin. We are looking for mercury. Might not be the right one here. I definitely need to go into that one though. Well, This is definitely mercury. When you're dealing with mercury, aluminum, silver, whichever one they may have, and your your amalgams, it can definitely cause neurological problems because you're dealing with the oxide form of it as well. You know, plants may carry these heavy metals as well. So we're made of this. This is in our body. We're made of 102 minerals from the earth, but there's only a certain level that you can actually take. Otherwise, as you see, aluminum here, down here at the bottom, you see aluminum. I found increased levels of aluminum in the bloodstream and urine that affected their short-term memory, learning ability, and concentration. That's just aluminum. We haven't even got to the other ones as far as like mercury is concerned, cadmium, antimony, chromium, lead, arsenic. All of these cause neurological problems, and too much of it can be deadly. And this is what we're experiencing. That's very interesting. Negative effects have been attributed to aluminum due to its creation of superoxide free radicals, perhaps also associated with other trace minerals such as vanadium, vitamin E, and copper. Substance with side-like activity seem to be helpful in toxicity of aluminum. Increase aluminum intake from antacids during pregnancy may cause growth retardation, poor skeletal development, malformation, and low maternal. Wow. Everything just shot through my mind right now of all the midgets that have these bone problems. Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna have to really dig into this. Okay. So minerals that can also do this, which will remove aluminum from your cells, can do this, which is calcium, zinc, copper, iron, magnesium, silver, what's that, boron, phosphorus, lithium, and silica. So that we do have herbs that will take care of that as well. Yeah, I'm gonna have to really go through this. See, I didn't read all this before I got on here, so this is my first time. This is just as new as it is for you as it is for me. Okay. Okay. Alright, so enough of reading this part here. Let's go on to the next real quick. And this thing's been taking its time.
That I was doing anything at all to try and get someone to help me.
So your GP didn't send you to a consultant? So
No.
you didn't do the basic observations?
This lady here, we had some neuro disease after a vaccine.
The neurological stage, that wasn't done at the time, and then you weren't, when you complained about these symptoms, you weren't referred to a hospital specialist for an assessment?
No, the GP surgery eventually allowed me to be seen by somebody who doesn't ever work at their surgery, a young doctor who I've never seen again, and so it felt like I was just being passed on to the most junior person or transient person, so they just haven't wanted to know. And I'll give you an example. I was in the GP's this week, banging my head against the brick wall again, and I said that my immunologist had said I should have a booster, and I said, could I have that done here in the surgery? And the GP said, no, really, that's just for older people in the community, you know. And I said, but so he said, you can go to a vaccination hub. And I said, but I said, and this was after a conversation that was really going badly wrong, you know, in other words, I wasn't getting any help. And I said to him, but you can't have it both ways. You're telling me I'm clinically vulnerable and I've got to get a booster. And I'm so vulnerable, which I don't feel. Well, I feel it from my adverse reaction, but otherwise I didn't. Mm. But you won't let me come to my local surgery where it's better. Something goes wrong, you can monitor me.
Medical supervision, yeah.
Yeah, rather than me drive myself somewhere, where, because, you know, there's, well, I'd have to get somebody to drive me or something, but, you know, it's just upside down thinking. I don't understand it at all. I mean, everything they do, every single thing the GP surgery has done, when I've booked blood tests, I turn up, this has happened twice now since the vaccination, no record of the appointment. And so I stand there and put my foot. It's very hard to think it's not intentional. I can't quite believe it could be intentional. But today I went in again and I checked with the nurse and I said, you are checking for immunoglobulin subsets, aren't you? Because I said, we're trying to establish that I'm not clinically vulnerable. And I said, and if they're normal, I don't see how anyone can say I'm clinically vulnerable. And she said, oh no, that's not on there. And that was left off last time on the 8th of November, so not long ago. It got forgotten last time. So we rebooked, you know, my insistence to have them done this time. And they were doing albumin. What's that for?
Albumin's the protein in the blood.
Right.
It's what makes the blood, it's what carries medicine, it's what carries drugs in the blood, and it's also what sucks the water back in from the tissue fluids.
Right.
So it's the amount of protein.
They refuse. I've said time and again, after I spoke to you, I said, please, can I see a cardiologist? Mm-hmm. I have these racing feelings. I wear a fitness tracker, yep. And I'm kind of used to, you know, what that would be at. And the one thing I've noticed, unlike Kyle, who'd been really onto his, whereas really I use mine for steps, you know, just to try and make sure I achieve minimum steps to kind of keep healthy-ish. What I have noticed is, if I go upstairs here, it would go really very high, you know, which I think is very strange in a short space of time, given that I used to do 60 flights of stairs in the gym before, you know, on the stair machine before the pandemic. And obviously I haven't done that, but what I have done a little bit strangely with the lockdowns and all the rest of it is I've had a
We're back.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry, carry on. It was just
Yeah.
a flick off the internet. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, I had a goal of 30 flights of stairs a day. So what I'm saying is, it's not as though you could say, oh well, perhaps you're just noticing because you're going upstairs. But it's one of the little fitness things we've done in the home gym, if you like, of the house, consistently. And so I have noticed swings in my pulse, you know, and yeah.
It goes up to a very high rate, Nick, doesn't it?
Well, I wouldn't know a high rate from a low rate, unlike Kyle, you know, who knows,
Yeah, I see.
you know, fitness stuff. But
Really aware of it.
for me, it seems to go in one flight of stairs, which is about 12 stairs. It will go up to 125. Does that sound a lot? So,
Yeah, it's much higher than you would expect for your level of fitness.
yeah, whereas in the gym, when I used to do my 60 flights, which was a killer, you know, constant like this on the machine, I used to stop. That was, my heart was super fit, you know, but I used to stop at about 140 because I was advised in the gym that that's a good kind of place that you don't want to over exert yourself.
So you've lost your exercise tolerance there, your heart rate's going up disproportionately to the activity you're undertaking.
Exactly right. So in fact, I would say, as a self-preservation sort of feeling inside me, I feel I have no ability to exercise at all. Because I used to run as well, and I don't feel that it would be safe. When I walk up a hill, I'm clutching at my chest, you know, with the pain, and then I stop and I have to go. I just make this up, you know, but I'm a great believer in instincts in your body and things, and I just go, you know, and that's what I feel I have to do, and I just until the pain subsides.
So you get pain when you walk, when you start exercising, you get pain. Where do you get the pain then?
There.
Right, so it's the left side of your chest.
Yeah.
And what sort of pain is it? Is it like a gripping pain, or is it sharp pain, or?
That is sort of sharpish, but it's not like these little pinches that I get now. But it's sort of sharpish, but it's a frightening pain. It's a pain that makes you stop and think that's not right. That's all I can say. I've never had a heart issue in my life, and it's a frightening pain. You just know it's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, this merits a cardiological assessment straight away, doesn't it? You should see a cardiologist straight away.
I've never been a hypochondriac. I've never imagined. Life is too busy, and I'm really, really lucky. I've cried a lot since all this happened because of the torment of medical people not wanting to help. You know, the absolute torment of it, and the frustration and the fear that there's something wrong with me and nothing's being done. And I've also felt, so I feel quite ashamed, and I'll try not to be emotional.
It's fine then.
I've been here before.
Sorry.
I've done that. It's very emotional.
Sorry to put you through this.
And many people are going to experience these feelings because you don't understand the abuse.
No, I'm just thinking about Kyle. I've also felt, and I feel guilty about.
This is happening, folks. This is nothing to play with. Look at the effects of radio frequency radiation from Wi-Fi devices on mercury released from amalgam restorations. If this is happening from just the dental filling in your teeth, this is happening from the metal vapors that is in the air that comes from the contrails. This is happening from any type of heavy metals that come from your processed, let me not say your processed foods, meats, whichever. product in our home, and for this to bind in your system, radiation is needed. Otherwise, it can be flushed out of your system if you're drinking plenty of water or eating a proper diet to help remove it from your system. But once you have enough radiation around you, you can bind it. If it's a vapor, it'll bind in your lungs, and this causes blood clots and pneumonia and neurological conditions as well. It doesn't happen the same for everyone because everybody's body mutates things differently. Everyone's body mutates differently. This is how unique we are. Your cells, your blood cells, everyone's blood cells mutates differently. It can end up in the same place for some of us. But you get these heavy metals in your system, it can cause pain just about anywhere in your body. Now there is certain places that it will go if you have too much excess of it. Okay? So we have to understand that we cannot be sleeping with our cell phones. We cannot be having this Bluetooth in our ear. And I constantly keep telling people about this Apple Watch and Bluetooth in their ear, smart watches, all of that. I'm telling you. You don't have to believe anything I'm telling you. Do your thorough research. You cannot go off of what the company is telling you. They don't care. They do not care. You have to understand. This is listed here. It's telling you what it will do here. You can go to this. It's going to be down below as a reference. And you can go through what I have in references. And they will tell you what it's doing. Man, if you have that cell phone in your pocket and you are having testicle issues where you're having a pain that you don't know where it's coming from, and every time you go to the doctor and they don't know where it's coming from, it is coming from your phone. It is eating your testicles. It is destroying your testicles. This is how you get prostate cancer. Please understand, this is real. This is not fake. I'm reaching one, teaching one. Let's get on with the next here. This is Dane Calloway, man, and I'm going to start back from the beginning because listen, this brother dropped it down, man. Listen to this rap he came in with, man. I gotta give props to him. This is not monetized. I do not own the rights to this. So I'm just gonna get it going here.
Look, 100 years after 100 years, they done lied to us about this and that. Told us all we from Africa.
We're not gonna play the whole video. You guys, the link is below, and you can go and see the rest of it. But this is gonna get maybe about the first 20-25 minutes.
Take a closer look at their backgrounds in the background. Show my people where they closer look. Show my people where they get it from, where they hit it from. All sorts of angles. When it comes to this research, you must please first don't trust strangers. Finding out all of your own is what I highly recommend and suggest. And if you're looking for answers and about me, I highly recommend you the best, which is my website at the link you see across the screen. Don't let it miss you. I make it simple. I double down on that black and white. It's too official.
Knowledge. He just dropped it.
If something can be connected, it will be connected in the 5G world. The 5G revolution will touch all corners of our country.
But this 5G revolution may have a dark side.
Autonomous vehicles, smart city energy grids, transportation networks, and water systems. Hundreds of billions of microchips. Hundreds of billions of microchips.
Wireless radiation has biological effects. Published, peer-reviewed science already shows that today's technology creates radio frequencies that pose a threat to both the human body and to animals, not to mention to the environment.
The 5G revolution will touch all corners of our country. Of our country. Of our country. Of our country. Of our country.
These existing health effects of wireless radiation are worthy of attention because in order for 5G to work efficiently, cell towers will need to be installed everywhere. That's why over 200 doctors and scientists worldwide are now cautioning that we need research on the health effects of 5G before its rollout. Let's consider that the brain tumors, infertility, memory loss, nausea, neurological disorders, and anxiety may not even be the worst 5G has to offer. Because with 5G, also comes the potential to turn every device into a way for the state to spy on you.
In today's society of America, technology has become big business due to the heavy influence of social media, social marketing, and social engineering. And millions of people all over the country have since progressed over time as being the victimized consumers. Over the years, it has become more common for the average American to own a smart device due to how technology is advancing almost every 3 months now. So things like your typical refrigerator that would just normally act as a storage unit for your food has evolved into being a computer that stores your food, tells you today's forecast, allows you to surf the web, and even conveniently alerts you whenever a particular item in your fridge needs to be replenished. And this all sounds good and very utilitarian, I might add, but have we ever thought about where the line should be drawn here? Question everything. Like, who gets to determine how far technology goes in the first place? Are there no limits? Question everything. Like, what is the actual overall goal of advanced technology anyway? Is it to make the human being less dependent or as lazy as possible? Questioning everything sparks an internal dialogue within one's mindset, allowing for the individual to become skeptical of all information presented. It will also assist with differentiating the truth from a commonly known opinionated fact. This is why a fact can be easily checked and the truth is way more difficult to find. Now, there are many truths that lay dormant behind the original meaning of words, especially when it comes to the English language, and being cognizant of the history of the words you speak is a very essential key factor when you are progressing in perpetual divine oneness. In most cases, you would discover that particular words that you would commonly use in a benevolent fashion actually carries a negative, non-connotative definition, or rather, its primary meaning is used in a malevolent sense. For example, everyone can relate to using the word nice as a formal compliment normally, but it turns out that its original definition associates the word nice as being, quote, foolish, ignorant, frivolous, and senseless. Now, even though its definition changed around the early 1800s, who's to say what a person's actual intentions are when using this word? The point of me bringing this to your attention correlates with the original question of this segment, which is, why are they called smart devices? The original definition of the word smart as an adjective associates it as meaning, quote, painful, severe, stinging, causing a sharp pain, and using the word smart as a verb meant, quote, to be painful, to pain, to bite, to rub away, and to harm. So, with that in mind, even though we know that its definition has since been changed by some mysterious persons, could it be possible that smart devices are actually harmful? Well, nowadays, we have even more technology on the rise, and for the most part, people would tend to gravitate towards its simplistic functionalities and cool new features, more so than some safety concerns that a few of us may have pointed out publicly already. Remember that old saying, a hard head makes a soft behind? Let's take the new 5th gen networks for example, or rather those 5G networks that everyone is hearing about commercially, and how they are being campaigned as if it's the best new thing since sliced bread. The 5G network is said to be more than 100 times faster than the 4th gen network, in which 4G is just limited to using frequencies directed from a single cell tower towards, let's say, your smartphone that's within a 10 to 20 mile radius of that cell tower, and then transmute that same frequency back to that single cell tower. So the further you move away from that initial cell tower, your signal weakens until you are in the range of another cell tower in a different location. 5G eliminates that process by nearly quadrupling the amount of cell towers that also works alongside much smaller cell towers additionally, allowing the frequencies to work more proficient and uninterrupted. However, having all of these frequencies working all at once comes with a hefty price tag, and I am not referring to how much your internet service provider would charge you, nor how much the installation would cost them. With more frequency waves being emitted, whether higher or lower, comes even more radiation, much more radiation, to a point where scientists, doctors, activists, physicians, and even professors in the medical field have publicly stated their concerns with this 5G network and its immediate health hazards towards any living being. For example, a public health professor at the University of California named Dr. Joel Moskowitz stated, quote, "The deployment of 5G or 5th generation cellular technology constitutes a massive experiment on the health of all species because millimeter waves are weaker than microwaves. They are predominantly absorbed by the skin, meaning their distribution is quite focused there. Since skin contains capillaries and nerve endings, millimeter waves bioeffects may be transmitted through molecular mechanisms by the skin or through the nervous system." End quote. Then he also said that the millimeter waves that 5G will emit will directly affect the eyes, testes, skin, sweat glands, and the nervous system. Now, what's very important to note here is that the 5G millimeter waves are limited to even shorter lengths than of the 4G network. But to compensate for that, the 5G infrastructure is calling for 10 times the amount of mini cell towers that will be placed even closer to office buildings, schools, hospitals, and especially our homes, making the rate of being exposed to RF radiation even higher. Kevin Modis, who is the president of the U.S. Brain Tumor Association, said that, quote, within the radio frequency portion of the electromagnetic spectrum, the higher the frequency, the more dangerous the radiation is, end quote. Studies have shown that being exposed to these types of radio waves or radio frequencies, whether high or low, can cause brain damage, cancer, and even affect an infant's DNA structure tremendously. Now, the good news is, there is a fight to stop this systematic installation of the 5G network, and the FCC, or the Federal Communications Commission, is fully aware of the public's concerns. But so far, it just delayed the process of installation. And I am doing my part by making you aware of what's going on. Spread the word, people. So now, which definition of the word smart correlates with their intentions? Wait, before you answer that, let's go over another alarming concern in regards to these smart devices. Most of you are aware that when you are utilizing, let's say, your smartphone, for example, that your direct location is being recorded, even if you have your locator off on your device. You can actually check this for yourself by just simply having your locator off and type in google.com in your web browser, for example, and scroll all the way down to the bottom of that initial page, and you'll see what I mean. The reason why this is happening is due to your MAC address or your IP address that is automatically assigned to your specific internet service. This is also how those ads that you may see anywhere you surf the web is being catered to you based on your location and your browsing activity. Yeah, that gets recorded too. Oh, and let's not forget about how you just had a conversation with your friend about possibly buying some new item you wanted or needed. And then not long after that, you'll see an ad for that particular item pop up all of a sudden while you're surfing the web. That's because your conversations are also being softly recorded by your smartphone or any other smart device that has a built-in microphone for that matter. Now, you're probably asking, is this even legal? Yes and no, but more so yes, due to you nonchalantly agreeing and accepting the terms of service and privacy policies of free websites like Facebook and Google and free applications like Instagram and Twitter, and even those viral face manipulation apps that people download on their smart devices. If you didn't know this, be sure to make it a habit to read the privacy policies and even the permissions that you literally give them inadvertently. Now, with all of that being said, the alternative to combat these smart device privacy issues is a service called VPN, which is an acronym for Virtual Private Network. Having a VPN can allow its users to surf the internet privately, safely, and more secure. In more broader terms, having a VPN allows the user to hide their IP addresses from unwanted people, like, say for example, advertisers, scammers, hackers, and even the government if applicable. Hiding your IP address is not illegal, just in case you were wondering. In fact, your IP address is automatically assigned to you by your internet service provider, like Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, or Spectrum, just to name a few. Your IP address tends to showcase your direct location, whether if you're at home, at work, or on the road, depending on which devices you are using at that time. And in most cases, the majority of people have no idea that their every move is being tracked, not only by their internet service provider, but anyone else that decides to take a peek at your activity for whatever reason.
Now, that can be a problem, especially when you have your police department is able to access certain information. They might not be able to get all of it, but they definitely can have you under very scrutiny, surveillance. So be mindful of that. Me personally, I'm not doing anything wrong or fucked up or anything like that. I've learned to go through my Facebook and a lot of my social media and cut the tracking and kind of cut those off. It's still there. Don't get me wrong. Like, you will see it, from Google. Whatever you search on Google still shows up on Facebook. So, but I'm okay with that. And as far as building a business or something and creating, I'm not worried about anyone stealing information on that part. It's because my thought behind it is 7.8 billion people in the world. If I can't still create what I can do and still be able to have an effect or impact out of 7.8 billion people, then something's wrong with me. So, but other than that, this is very serious, especially when it comes down to location and who you're dealing with. That goes for you women, and dealing with, you have stalkers. Like, for instance, Snapchat. Most women don't know on Snapchat that, and I have to say this, that your location pops up on Snapchat if you're not careful and don't turn that setting off. So you guys have to be careful out here. Alright, let me finish on here.
The best thing about having a VPN service is that you can stay anonymous for as long as you own the service.
Get you one.
Because a VPN service will literally hide your native IP address that was automatically assigned to you from being revealed to anyone, anywhere on the internet, by assigning you a totally different IP address that will resemble as if you are located in, say, another part of the world, for example. You do not have to have something to hide in order to have a reason to have a VPN. And you do not need to buy more equipment or switch to another internet service provider to own a VPN. There are plenty of VPN providers out there that you can choose from. Simply search for VPN providers on the internet. Take a look at what they offer. Make price comparisons. And be sure to look at their reviews, then make the best choice for you. So in conclusion, no stranger should be allowed to do what they want to do with your privacy. And the way today's society is now, privacy is becoming even more obsolete due to those who are not cognizant of what to do in order to protect themselves from being monitored, tracked, blocked, and even identified. But now that you know all of this, what are you going to do about it?
According to your testimony in opposition to the legislation. You have 5 minutes, ma'am. Please proceed.
Committee members, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I'm Sharon Goldberg. I'm an internal medicine physician. I've practiced medicine for 21 years, and my background is mostly academic, internal medicine, hospital-based, clinical research, and medical education.
Now I want you to listen to this lady here very closely. Very closely. If you need to go back and listen to it again, listen to exactly what she is saying and what it can do. That has been scientifically proven.
I am going to skip many of the things I wanted to say because I didn't realize it was only 5 minutes. Wireless radiation has biological effects, period. This is no longer a subject for debate when you look at PubMed and the peer-reviewed literature. These effects are seen in all life forms: plants, animals, insects, microbes. In humans, we have clear evidence of cancer now. There is no question. We have evidence of DNA damage, cardiomyopathy, which is the precursor of congestive heart failure, neuropsychiatric effects. So 5G is not a conversation about whether or not these biological effects exist. They clearly do. 5G is a conversation about unsustainable healthcare expenditures. Why do I say this? We've been sitting on the evidence for EMR and chronic disease for decades. And now we're seeing all these epidemics appearing. So diabetes is the first epidemic. I think most of you know the statistics. They're very scary. 1 in 3 American children will become diabetic in their lifetime, and if they're Hispanic females, the number is 1 in 2. So what does this have to do with wireless radiation? Wireless radiation and other electromagnetic fields, such as magnetic fields and dirty electricity, have been clearly associated with elevated blood sugar and diabetes. That is what the peer-reviewed literature says. It is not opinion. The closer you live to a cell tower, the higher your blood glucose. That is based on hemoglobin A1C measurements. So the idea with small cells of putting the cells closer to people's homes and bedrooms scientifically is very dangerous. And from an economic perspective, it's dangerous. And you may not know this. I was shocked to find this out. But the way you create a model of diabetes in rats, in the lab, is by exposing them to 2.4 gigahertz. And this is not for long-term exposure. So, I don't have time to talk about the costs, but the huge problem with diabetes really is chronic kidney disease. End-stage renal disease, the worst complication of diabetes, leads to hemodialysis. Hemodialysis is an automatic qualification for Medicare. And if you don't qualify for Medicare, we still have to dialyze the patient. And the state ends up paying in many different instances. So, renal failure is 1% of Medicare, but it takes up 7% of all Medicare expenditures. I don't have time to talk about this anymore, but once again, so the other epidemics that clearly link from the science with electromagnetic radiation are related to mental health. And this is straight from PubMed. This isn't my opinion, this is science. Okay?
For those of us who aren't physicians, what is PubMed?
I'm sorry. It's just it's our National Library of Medicine. This is where you would go. This is just the peer-reviewed literature. So we have 3 epidemics that clearly, they're essentially one epidemic. We have deterioration of mental health in the United States. And if you look really at the science, what does it show? And these epidemics are our suicide epidemic, epidemics in violent shootings, and the opioid epidemic. And I don't have 5 minutes is not the time to talk about this. This is in the peer-reviewed literature. I have a file to submit for the record, but these are facts. These are things that have just been glossed over by the wireless industry, and I really don't have time to talk about them in 5 minutes. I wish I did. But we need to examine our epidemics in the context of our EMF exposures. What does that mean? That means that the CDC, tracking these epidemics, we need to start measuring how much radiation are people being exposed to, and before we roll out 5G. And this means there are 4 kinds of electromagnetic fields that we know are harmful to human health. So radio frequency radiation, magnetic fields, dirty electricity, and electric fields. Okay? Our exposure, any given person, and all humans are affected by EMFs. are given exposure has nothing to do with the research that my colleagues are going to cite with the National Toxicology Program. That is an assessment of the risk of one cell phone in the near field, okay? What is our exposure in a day? It's not one cell phone. It's cell phones, it's multiple wireless networks, it's smart meters, it's cell towers. It's this sandwich, and it all adds up. And this is a serious problem for occupational health, public safety, and personal safety. And I feel that it's irresponsible to be even talking about the Internet of Things and rolling out a new untested technology when we're not even measuring what are our current exposures from the current networks.
This is my work idea. I work for Weill Cornell Medicine on 68th New York. I do comparative pathology research. We deal with biohazardous materials and radiation particles. We inject animals like rhesus monkeys, rats, and mice with diseases and radioactive agents. 2 weeks ago when I went to work, I noticed the security guards were in Tyvek hazmat suits and they were armed, which is not normal, but I didn't pay it any mind. I go upstairs to work, I clock in, my boss is like, yo, listen, you're not needed, but we need you to surrender your Geiger counter. My Geiger counter was attached to my ID because we deal with radiation emissions in my department on the 7th floor, which is the only department that deals with radiation. But they wanted me to surrender my Geiger counter. When I left work, the only people that were left in my building's facility were the scientists, the professors, the researchers, and security guards that were armed. It's not the around getting people sick. It's 5G network from the radiation. And the reason why they have me surrender my Geiger counter is so if I'm in a proximity of people that have 5G networks, my Geiger counter is going to detect that I'm in a proximity of radiation. That's what's getting people sick. That's what's getting people with respiratory issues. That's why some people are dying. Now, my homie works for Verizon. He got a message via email from corporate instructing him and his 100-man crew to pump 5G network cables throughout the tri-state area, whether buildings or houses were abandoned or not. The letter said, if your crew gets sick, we'll send them home and you keep on working. Don't worry, when they say that the oil is short, you'll be first dibs to get the oil. The oil to care. Exactly.
I'm Dr. Devra Davis, and I'm here to talk with you today about the 5G that Environmental Health Trust is quite concerned about. This is a network that's being rolled out
The universe let me teach people last year.
I live in Davis as much as anyone else, but I don't want to put the health of my grandchildren at risk. I don't want to put them in harm's way, and we now know that the skin, our largest organ, does respond to 5G, and in fact we have in our sweat ducts, they can act as antennas that can receive signals. Now, this has not been tested for safety. The fact that it can interact with our sweat ducts may have much more profound meanings for our overall health and well-being. The idea that we're going to saturate this country with a network that has never been tested is appalling. And I am joining with many other scientists from around the world now to express concerns and to say we must evaluate these things before we roll out the technology. No matter how attractive it is for us to have faster downloads of video games, or virtual reality, the question we have to ask ourselves, is it worth endangering the health of our children to do that?
Joined the Royal Navy in 1960, and I specialised in microwave warfare. Radar, obviously, which uses microwave, but they don't just teach you radar, they teach you all about microwaves and other uses. So I understood about microwave warfare and how it can damage people, how it can harm people. And when I finished with the Royal Navy, I was also a diver in the Royal Navy, and microwaves are used in underwater mines as booby traps. Which actually got me interested because I was actually taking up mortar pieces underwater and it was too complicated, and I brought it to the surface, and my partner that was on the surface said, "Don't be an idiot, take it back down." He said, if somebody's beaming you with microwaves, they'll go right through you, and as you open the casing, trigger a photoelectric cell, and it'll blow all of us up. And he said, if it doesn't, you go through to it'll aim it at your head and make you make a mistake. And that's really got me interested from that point, because I thought, well, how can microwaves going into your brain make you make a mistake? And I asked a lot of questions. I have a very curious brain, and the forces, they're very good at explaining things and telling you things. So I did that, and I also did a medical course while I was in to help me understand everything. And when I left, a small part of my job was to question captured agents, spies, because microwaves then were used as weapons as they are today. It is a perfect stealth weapon, and when governments don't like a group of people, for instance, the ladies who protest at Greenham Common in England about the American missile base they camped, they were microwaved. We microwaved Catholics in Northern Ireland to make them sick. It goes all over the world, and it's a weapon that you don't know you're being targeted, because the dose is very, very low, which is up.
I dare you to research all the spots that Black Lives Matter protested at last year. I guarantee you they were by towers. Each and every last spot. I got a few footages of that. I have a few footages of that. I do. I do not feel like going through my photos and looking for that. But when I do, that video, as a matter of fact, I thought I might have shared it back in one of my old YouTube. I'm going to try to find it, but I got a lot of things to do today. So I'm just going to let him finish, and then I'm going to finish doing these herbs. I haven't been asleep, so by the time you guys see this video, I'll be working.
Actually more dangerous than a high dose. It's very, very low, and it may take a year or two, but you can cause neurological damage and cancers with low-level microwaves, and you can make all your opponents sick. It's a perfect weapon for a government.
If you are dealing with a cereal that can be killed in 80-degree weather, that means it's weak. So, no. So now, if you're going to not killing people, it's the 5G radiation that they're pumping out. Number one, through your phone. Number two, through these cell towers that they're installing right now as you're at home in your cozy house. Number three, you wouldn't need a mandatory curfew unless you were doing something illegal to the people who didn't know. Okay? Yeah. So while you're at home on mandatory lockdown from 9 to 5, that's when they're installing 5G that does not need to go up, because it's going to fry your brain. Okay, it's going to fry your insides. It's going to scramble you. It's going to give you cancer. It's going to give you leukemia. It's going to give you...
While everyone was playing scared last year on the lockdown, I took my ass outside late at night. I seen police sitting by the cell towers. Why? Because over in Italy, they were burning down towers. And they felt like the news was going to get here, and they were protecting their investment. We were thinking that they were watching the neighborhood. No, they were watching those towers. Okay? So, and then there was a lot of towers that just was popping up. I did not get footage of them putting up towers. But I did see a lot of construction going on. A lot. Dealing with towers.
You flu-like symptoms so bad that you're gonna think you have to.
It's a perfect weapon for a government to use. So that was going on, and I gathered all the information about that from people who were captured from other countries. to find out what technologies they had, what pulse frequencies they used. But as I stressed, it was only a small part of my work, but because I was highly trained in it and I was useful, it just became a part of my working structure, along with master criminals and some all sorts of people I found incredibly interesting actually to talk to. Very, very interesting. And then when I left there, I took a job teaching, and I taught advanced level physics, and I specialized in nuclear and atomic radiation, and again microwaves. And I've just always been in microwaves. And then it was a doctor. I went to see a doctor once, as most teachers do, with a sore throat. And he said, as most doctors do, it's viral, there's nothing I can do for you. And I was leaving. And he said, hang on, Barry, he said, you're a physicist? And I said, yeah. And he said, can you explain something? He said, I went to a house that had a cot death 5 years ago. And the family moved, and a new family moved in, they had a new baby. The cot was in exactly the same place, and there was another cot death. And he said, 5 years apart. And he said, there's a transmitter the other side of the child's bedroom wall. Could the transmitter cause the cot death? And I said, I don't know. I said, but I'll look into it. And then I found that microwaves were involved, and I knew what microwaves did. And a while later I went back to the doctor, I wrote a paper on it, and I said, there's your answer. Microwaves can cause cot death by 2 or 3 different mechanisms. There's your answer. And then for some reason he told somebody who told somebody, and people started phoning me up and writing to me saying, can you explain this, or can you help with that? I've never actually asked anyone if I can do anything. They always come to me. And then the police came to me and said, we're getting this new tetra airwave system, we don't understand what's happening. Can you read all this scientific rubbish and just put it into Janet and John and tell us? And I said, of course I can. So that was published, and since then it's snowballed and snowballed and snowballed, and now I receive up to 1,000 communiques a week from various countries, various people, and I can't handle it.
What are you guys doing here?
Bring the fiber optic.
What is it for?
For the school.
Hold up, because that video right there, that little part right there with Baby Trial, it's a very long video, but it's a real important part that I need you guys to actually see. So let me go on my history. I need you guys to see this. This one. This is just 14 minutes. I'm going to let it rock out and get on these herbs.
Radar, obviously, which uses microwave. But they don't just teach you radar, they teach you all about microwaves and other uses. So I understood about microwave warfare and how it can damage people, how it can harm people. And when I finished with the Royal Navy, I was also a diver in the Royal Navy, and microwaves are used in underwater mines as booby traps. You can which actually got me interested because I was actually taking a bomb to pieces underwater, and it was too complicated. And I brought it to the surface, and my partner that was on the surface said, "Don't be an idiot, take it back down." He said, "If somebody's beaming you with microwaves, they'll go right through you, and as you open the casing, trigger a photoelectric cell, and it'll blow all of us up." And he said, "If it doesn't go through to the bomb, it'll aim it at your head and make you make a mistake." And that's really got me interested from that point, because I thought, well, how can microwaves going into your brain make you make a mistake? And I asked a lot of questions. I have a very curious brain. And the forces, they're very good at explaining things and telling you things. So I did that, and I also did a medical course while I was in to help me understand everything. And when I left, a small part of my job was to question captured agents, spies, terrorists, because microwaves then were used as weapons, as they are today. It is a perfect stealth weapon. And when governments don't like a group of people, for instance, the ladies who protest at Greenham Common in England about the American missile base they camped, they were microwaved. We microwaved Catholics in Northern Ireland to make them sick. It goes all over the world. And it's a weapon that you don't know you're being targeted, because the dose is very, very low, which is actually more dangerous than a high dose. It's very, very low, and it may take a year or two, but you can cause neurological damage and cancers with low-level microwaves, and you can make all your opponents sick. It's a perfect weapon for a government to use. So that was going on, and I gathered all the information about that from people who were captured from other countries to find out what technologies they had, what pulse frequencies they used. But as I stressed, it was only a small part of my work, but because I was highly trained in it and I was useful, it just became a part of my working structure, along with master criminals and terrorists and all sorts of people I found incredibly interesting, actually, to talk to. Very, very interesting. And then when I left there, I took a job teaching, and I taught advanced level physics, and I specialized in nuclear and atomic radiation, and again microwaves. And I've just always been in microwaves. And then it was a doctor. I went to see a doctor once, as most teachers do, with a sore throat. And he said, as most doctors do, "It's viral, there's nothing I can do for you." And I was leaving, and he said, "Hang on, Barry," he said, "you're a physicist?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Can you explain something?" He said, "I went to a house that had a cot death 5 years ago. And the family moved, and a new family moved in, they had a new baby, the cot was in exactly the same place, and there was another cot death." And he said, 5 years apart. And he said, "There's a transmitter the other side of the child's bedroom wall. Could the transmitter cause the cot death?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "But I'll look into it." And then I found that microwaves were involved, and I knew what microwaves did. And a while later I went back to the doctor, I wrote a paper on it, and I said, "There's your answer. Microwaves can cause cot death by 2 or 3 different mechanisms. There's your answer." And then for some reason he told somebody who told somebody, and people started phoning me up and writing to me saying, "Can you explain this, or can you help with that?" I've never actually asked anyone if I can do anything. They always come to me. And then the police came to me and said, "We're getting this new tetra airwave system we don't understand. what's happening. Can you read all this scientific rubbish and just put it into Janet and John and tell us? And I said, of course they can. So that was published, and since then it's snowballed and snowballed and snowballed, and now I receive up to 1,000 communiques a week from various countries, various people, and I can't handle it. So, and I'm here now because somebody asked me to come here. Wi-Fi, I think anyone who puts Wi-Fi into a school should be locked up for the rest of their life. I really do. I think they're not fit to walk on the surface of this planet because they haven't looked at the research, and whatever incentive they have, it is not worth the genetic problems that parents are going to face with their children when they're born. And if you think of a single parent, a mother, who has a genetically deformed child, that particular mother will feel guilty because she gave birth. She will feel guilty and she will be worried every single second of every single day for her life. She will worry that the child won't marry. If the child can marry, she'll worry that the children will carry the disease, which they will. She will worry when she dies who will take care of them. So you are condemning both the family and the children to a lifetime of absolute hell. And this is already published. It is available to look up. It's what I call intentional ignorance. They are offered some sort of incentive and they think, oh, this is going to be good, we'll have it. Now the problem is, imagine you are a 15-year-old schoolgirl. All of the 400,000 eggs in your ovaries were with you at birth. They're not fully developed, but they're with you. They are 10 times more susceptible to radiation than all of the other DNA in the body. And scientists don't realize that. They don't read all of the papers as I do. So you have this highly susceptible genetic material which is going to make your children. And you are irradiating it because Wi-Fi's, they are transmitters as well as the routers, as well as the ones either side of you. They are all transmitting at this height through your ovaries. So you are risking the damage, the DNA damage of your child every time you sit down and you use Wi-Fi. And it's like saying, if I smoke a cigarette, which one will cause the damage? The answer is I don't know. It could be the one today. So you now have a child that has a probability of being genetically damaged. But the real damage is when that child grows up. You have genetic material in your ovaries which could be damaged. Now, the real problem comes, so you have a child that could be born genetically damaged, but the real problem comes when you become pregnant. If you are a teacher or a mature student and you become pregnant, because the embryo inside your womb, in the first 100 days, all of those 400,000 eggs are forming in your embryo, your child's ovaries. So your child could be born with genetically damaged eggs. And the main thing about the eggs in the ovaries of your child is that they have absolutely no protection. It hasn't been developed yet. We have a natural protection against microwaves. It was developed since the Stone Age against thunderstorms and massive amounts of radiation coming into our body. But in your embryo, your uterus, in the fetus, where your child is developing for the first 100 days, in the ovaries, the eggs do not have that protection. So they are at maximum risk from radiation. And for the first month or so, you wouldn't even know you were pregnant. You wouldn't even be taking precautions. That is the main danger area. So you give birth to a daughter, but her ovaries are now contaminated. She may be normal, she may be genetically damaged, but her ovaries are at the most risk. So when your daughter grows up and she becomes pregnant and has a baby, this is where one of these eggs will be fertilized and come out. So the real damage here is your grandchildren. That is where it is going to show most. And we already see this in animals that have reproductive cycles of a year or 2 years or 3 years. We're already seeing this, and it has been published by veterinary schools and vets and scientists, so we know this happens. And it's also been documented in the Cold War when women were deliberately microwaved. So we know it does happen. The documents are there. And what you're risking by putting Wi-Fi into schools is the future generations of all of these girls. But it gets worse, because this particular DNA, the mitochondrial DNA inside you, and the DNA inside you, the mitochondrial DNA, you can trace unchanged to your mother, her mother, her mother, right the way back to the beginning of the human race in Africa, the Stone Age. You can trace your ancestors, if you could, right back to the very first lady. It is unchanged, the mitochondria. And that is being unchanged in your children, which means if you damage it, your child could be genetically damaged, then her child, and her child, and her child, forever. You are condemning the future generations of every single child until there are no more lines left in the female in your family. You must stop. A female must stop producing children for this to stop. So when you put Wi-Fi in schools, what you're saying is, for the sake of a little bit of money that saves getting a workman in to drill holes through the walls to feed cable, because it's cheaper, we're just going to put Wi-Fi in, but you can have genetically damaged children for the rest of your family's career. That's what we're saying.
Man, that was really deep, man. But I gotta go finish doing what I need to do here. I will talk to y'all later on. Peace, love, and positive energy. No. Cut that shit off.